Let's see, I have taken and washed all the components. I'm going to start off with the clear spheres and go with the, I already have water in here. There is watermarks on the inside. There's different levels depending on the trays you're using. I have an early observation that the large cube and the sphere trays are considerably more robust in manufacture than the Collins tray and the small cube trays, which were added later. I don't know if that's entirely because they were added later in the process and they found they didn't need to be that robust or whatever, or just simply because of the different shapes they don't need to be as robust. But they don't snap together quite as beautifully as this guy does, they're, like I said, they're not as robust. I'm not sure they're going to be as durable as this guy, which I figure is going to last quite a long time. Okay, so I have filled this up for the large sphere tray. You go to the lower hash mark, and then you take this guy's several pounds of rubber here, and you set down the top down, and then you come around on the bottom, and you lift it up on the tabs to get it into place all the way around. And there's one piece here that is larger and locks in. The others, you see, you go around the side here, make sure that you're all in place all the way around. And then you have to come up here, and then there are these little snap posts at the intersections between all 6 of the outer spheres and the inner sphere. And you can feel them click into place, which gives you a nice, even, positive fit all the way around. Make sure that is in fact the case. Now we're going to take it and slide it into place here. You take it and slide it slowly, and I am pretty sure I'm going to move this down here so the overhead camera can get it. We should see some water come up through the holes as we push it down the last bit of the way in here. There should be some water out of the top, but it doesn't appear there is, so I may not have had enough water. So let us get a little bit more real quick. Come back around, pour water into the center until it starts to bubble up on the sides. What's nice about this, as opposed to other directional freezing units I've had, is these little reservoirs on top here are going to be real important because that allows you to have extra water off of the top. On the other units I have, the fact that the top is concave, so any water that comes out extra falls off. There is going to be some evaporation in the freezer while this goes on. And because of this extra on top, that'll just go away. When you peel the top off, it'll pull off of the spheres, and it will prevent it from evaporating down into it. It also gives us a little bit of extra room. The rig is set now. I'm going to go take it and put it in my upright freezer. I hope I've got my upright freezer set at about 0. Wintersmiths actually suggests about only 10 degrees above 0 Fahrenheit. There's no way I can get away with my wife letting me take it all the way up that high, but we'll go to 0. I have found with other directional freezing that if your freezer is too cold, you will get clouding no matter how cool and spiffy your rig is. So hopefully I have the temperature good. They suggest it would take on approximately 30 hours to do this. That's interesting to me. That's a lot higher number than I'm used to having, but again, the really nice thing about this is the huge size of the reservoir underneath the ice. It is my supposition, based on what I've done before, that is going to make the directional freeze work a whole lot better. There's a lot more room for the air to be forced out as the ice freezes and allow that to fully freeze the top layer, which is where the ice we want is, before it starts closing in, and as the ice freezes in from all sides, it then forces the air out, and that's what creates the bubbles inside of your ice. It's really not impurities in the ice. It's just the air. So we're going to put this in the freezer, and then the next shot should hopefully be me pulling it out and seeing how it peels off. Thanks. All right, so this is the Phantom after it has come out of the freezer after about 40 hours. If you notice closely in here, it has actually been forced out, slightly out of it, as the water down at the bottom is finished freezing, and the air that got pushed up in that process has shoved the ice up. If we take a look on top of it, you'll see that the water in these little reservoirs on top is still fully there, which means that the balls are fully solidified. One thing, if you look at their videos that they don't say, but they clearly do, and this is something I've found with ice molding makes good sense anyway, is once you pull it out of the freezer, you really want to leave it just sitting for a little while to let the ice come up to temperature just a little bit. It makes it easier to open these things up. While we're doing that, I've got something else I want to grab out of the freezer that is one of my older ice mold systems. It's much smaller. It only makes 2 balls, and it'll illustrate the problem that they're fixing with these little reservoirs right here. Hang on. This is the polar ice, or one of the polar ice making ice devices I've got. And if you take a look here, you'll see what I meant. On this one, during the freezing process, one side the water came out and actually poured over the sides here, and in the other, air came in. So you can actually see you can push it down like this. So if you were to remove that ice ball from its frame, again, I did not allow it just to sit and warm up a little bit, so this is why I'm having such a difficult time. And nonetheless, this is a lovely, almost completely clear ice cube, but as you can see, it's got this huge air pocket on the top, and you will not have that with the polar ice, which is very cool. I mean, with the Phantom, which is very cool. So anyway, let's wait about 10 minutes, and then we'll crack this puppy open. Couple of things to note on the surface: the little reservoirs that were placed in there that makes this design so cool. One of the reasons it makes this design so cool are still full, so our balls should be perfectly spherical, which is nice. I still don't know if I have the freezer quite, I still think maybe a little bit too cold, so we may see some little sparkly moments in there in the ice, but we'll see here. To start, you're supposed to take one side and peel it up, and then take the other side and peel it up as well. Come back to the first side, peel it up, and our ice on the surface. We have a couple of the balls have stuck to the top, and a couple of the balls are in here. Let's take a look at one. That is darn pretty near clear, folks. Now, if you notice, there are these little dabs on there and a little bit of a seam, which they claim you can get rid of, but I'd be real pleased to see if you could manage it. You'd have to get it absolutely sealed correctly, and hopefully I'll learn how to do that. But one of the things you can do, and hopefully because I've allowed this to sit out here for 15 minutes, I'll be able to do this without cracking the sphere, is just run it under just a little bit of cold water. Which should give us, I got a little tiny crack in it, and another little tiny crack in it, so I'm still getting some thermal shock. I'll need to wait before I do the others, but still, that is a pretty darn clear piece of ice. It does have a little bit of that thermal shock right there, as you can see, but other than that, if you look through it, that is insanely clear. That is the best piece of homemade clear ice I have ever had. And now I'm going to wait and let this just sit like this. If you want to, an interesting thing to take a look at is inside of here. This is the remaining water from our reservoir in here. And if you look at that ice, it is not clear at all. It is completely filled with air bubbles. And I'm going to do a separate companion video just using this as an example of how the directional freezing works. There's a whole bunch of it written about it on the internet by people who know much more about it than me, and I'll include links with that video, which will come out shortly after this one. So, but the bottom line is this is one heck of a successful first trip as I get the freezer dialed in, and I am very, very happy. Congratulations, guys. Wintersmiths have done a great job.